Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We've got a lot to discuss. Of course, the breaking news, Donald Trump on Air Force One making a shocking and even potentially an incriminating admission that he was aware that Epstein, as Donald Trump referred to it as, was stealing his help, And then the reporter said, "So do you mean underage girls who were working in Mar-a-Lago? Is that what you're saying? Like Virginia Giuffre?" And then Trump's like, "Yeah, I like her." And so the timeline there is very concerning for Donald Trump, right? Because in 2000, that's when Virginia Giuffre, underage towel girl, was working at Mar-a-Lago. And all of this, by the way, Cohen, this predates you. For everybody wondering, Cohen's 2005, so this was before that you were there. But 2000, you have underage girl Virginia Giuffre becomes towel girl at Mar-a-Lago Spa. Donald Trump's now saying he was getting pissed that Epstein took her and other underage girls. But then in 2002, Donald Trump said that Epstein's a great guy who likes women on the younger side, and continued to be friends with Epstein up until 2004. Let me just play for you the shorter version of that clip, and then I'll play the longer one, because nothing should shock us at this point with Trump, but this one was pretty out there. Here, play this clip.
Just to button up on Mar-a-Lago, you're saying that Jeffrey Epstein poached two of your staffers. Who were they? Were they young?
I don't want to say two, or I don't want to say any number. You're talking about many years ago. But yeah, he took people. And because he took people, I say, don't do it anymore. You know, they work for me. And he took, beyond that, he took some others. And once he did that, that was the end of him. I didn't like, when they steal people, I don't like it.
When they steal people, I don't like it. But let me play for you the longer clip, then let me get your reaction to it. Let's play it.
So, Mr. President, Epstein has a certain reputation, obviously. I'm just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
Were some of them?
Were some of them young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young women?
What did they do?
In the spa.
In the spa?
Yeah, people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told them, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
Wow.
Ooh. You know, it's almost painful to listen to. What's funny is when he says, everybody knows this. It's already out there. It's a conversation that has, that doesn't need to take place. It's already well known. I'm going to be honest. It's not, I didn't know. I didn't know that that's the reason. In fact, the reason that I understand, and again, it was told to me from Michael Wolff when I did my Mea Culpa podcast with him. My understanding is that it had to do with the house in Palm Beach that Jeffrey allegedly brought Trump to guide him in the acquisition of it because it was going in for foreclosure. Somehow or another, Trump outbid him on that property for $40 million. Now, let me also say that's the same property that 2 years later that Trump sold to the Russian oligarch Dmitry Rybolovlev for $95 million. It's a great piece of property. House is believe it or not, for that kind of money. Dmitry Rybolovlev tore it down. So I guess it doesn't suck to have money. But my point is, I didn't know that he was stealing people. I had never even heard that story before. And what I thought was interesting, Ben, and I'd like to get your take on it, is at first he said, well, it was people and they, 2 people and many, I don't know exactly how many people. Was it Virginia Dufresne? I don't know. It could be the spa. We have the greatest spa. It seems like the conversation is all over the place. And I find that odd only because that someone's going to ask you that question. So how is it that it's not already formulated in your mind how you're going to respond to it? That's the part I don't understand.
I want you to
think
think
enablers doing?
Well, I think about how paranoid he must be right now, though, right? Because he knows he's in these files. The DOJ and FBI had about 1,000 lawyers and FBI agents go through these files. By the way, that's also 1,000 witnesses right now who have gone through this and potentially saw certain things. What do they have? I think he probably knows, and he's probably been briefed on it. We know that it is whatever is in there must be so bad. I mean, just this is my opinion, is so bad that he's been contorting himself in this way. Because I've talked about this before. What's already out there is some really bad stuff. He knows that the Wall Street Journal published that article, and even though he sued them, I think it's fairly clear at this point that that was a letter that he sent to Jeffrey Epstein for Epstein's 50th birthday back in 2003, right? By the way, 3 years after, to use Trump's words, underage girls were being stolen from his spa by Epstein. So you have that data point. You have Trump saying Epstein's a great guy who likes women on the younger side in 2002. I think Trump knows that you have all these media outlets digging into this time period and doing stories. And what I saw there is a liar and a fraud, but he's struggling, which you don't see him do a lot with the lies. Usually the lies come effortlessly to him, but he's trying to come up with things. And what he seems to want to try to say now, knowing what's probably going to come out, is I uncovered that he was sex trafficking underage girls at Mar-a-Lago, and that's why I kicked him out. But he can't go and say that because you were still hanging out with the guy through 2004, and the dates don't line up. So he's kind of workshopping what his lie is going to. That's how I see it.
So I see it a little bit different, but I'm very confused with the statements that he made. And you know what, Ben? Stay with me here for a second, because when you talk about your data points, I want to give you another one, food for thought. So you have young girls, underage girls, working at Mar-a-Lago. And that's okay. I mean, I've been to dozens of clubs, and they have like the lifeguards are underage. I worked at a beach club. I was certainly underage. Okay, no problem there. And Jeffrey Epstein is stealing these girls from you. So many, so upsetting that you end up kicking him out of the club and calling him a creep. But here's the part, the data point that I think we have to bring up. You know that Jeffrey Epstein is the one that's stealing them, and you know that Jeffrey Epstein is into underage girls. What did you think he was stealing them for? Like, that's the question that I want to ask. It's almost like if your parents are smokers and you steal a cigarette from their box, there's a better than likely presumption that you're going to go into the backyard and you're going to light it up, right? I mean, it's a pretty good presumption. So it's kind of like he stole these young girls. You know what Jeffrey Epstein was all about, which is why you called him a creep. Well, what did you think he was stealing them for? That's the question that this sort of word vomit ultimately brings out. And it's why this conspiracy, why this theories, why these, why this is all continuing to fester and just will not die, because it's basically one lie after another. And we could put this entire shit to bed tomorrow simply by releasing the file.
Now, when we think about what could be in those files, you've spoken to Michael Wolff. A lot of other hosts on our network have spoken to Michael Wolff. I recall if it was either in your interview or one he did recently with Legal AF, where he talks about, and Wolff knows defamation law. He's not going to go out and say things that he feels can open himself up to a lawsuit. I mean, he's been writing these books for 40 years, 50 years. He knows the law. He says that when he met with Epstein, he saw on a few occasions photographs of Donald Trump with girls of indeterminate age, topless, and Donald Trump with stains on his crotch area, with some of the girls of indeterminate age pointing at Donald Trump with the stain in his crotch area and kind of laughing at it. And Wolff says that he believes that that was being kept in a safe at Epstein's house, and he's aware that those existed. So we know when the search warrant was executed, the FBI would get their hands on Epstein's photos and things like that. And we all know a picture tells 1,000 words in that expression right there. And so I'll just give you my theory, but it's just an opinion. I don't know this to be the case. But if I think, what could it possibly be that has him so freaking worried? Because the stuff that's out there is all bad stuff, like really bad. Like the Virginia Giuffre story, I've been saying before, I said whether he knew or didn't know, that becomes a question. But Mar-a-Lago was used during a period of time where underage girls were picked by Epstein to be sex trafficked. I said, we know from what's been released that there was a 14-year-old underage girl brought by Epstein to Mar-a-Lago during the same period. And Epstein and Ghislaine brought her over and pointed to her next to Trump, according to the lawsuit filed by the underage girl, and said to Donald, do you like this little one? Do you like this one that I've brought? Do you like this one? And I mean, that's out there. Now, Donald Trump can dispute it because it's, a person's word, and Donald Trump likes to attack victims. But I'm thinking to myself, what could actually be in there? And it would have to be a photo or an audio recording or a video. And then I go to Wolff saying that he saw those photos, which I believe, it's just again my opinion, I believe that he would tell the truth on something like that. He's very specific in what he saw, and Wolff, as a biographer, knows how to also articulate very kind of vivid imagery in photos. And I think Donald Trump thinks that that photo could be the end of his administration. I laser focus on that. That's what I think it is. I was a litigator for a lot of years. You were as well. I've run through every permutation in my mind, and I go, that must be what he's terrified of. Whether that exists or doesn't exist, that's got to be what they're covering up. That's just what I think.
I don't think that that's what it is. It could be part of a bigger scenario. Let me also just jump in and say, I also found it very odd that he made it his business to repeat, not once, but twice, the statement that he was never at Epstein's island. He never had the privilege of being on Epstein's island. I just find that statement in itself, forgetting about the fact that it's grotesque, we should all acknowledge that it is. I find it interesting. And I don't know why he says the things that he says, because all they do again and again and again is keep the conspiracies flying. And I don't know. I really, truly don't know what it is that could be in that file. I really don't. I'm so torn here because I would expect that if there was something there, you would have hoped that under the Biden administration, somebody would have brought this out, right? Wouldn't they want to have done that, especially considering Trump for 2.5 years, almost 3 years before the election, actually announced his candidacy? Wouldn't you want to bring that out? So I'm just torn here because I don't know the answer. And I appreciate, Ben, very much you acknowledging I started with Trump in 2007, full-time at the Trump org. 2005 in his orbit doing legal work when I was a partner at a big, prestigious firm. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to understand what is it that could be in that file. And again, the part that bothers me the most, you and I can come up with 1,001 different thoughts, conjectures. But here's the thing. I don't want to do that. I just want the damn file. I want to see what's in that file. And it's more. It must be more than just simply that he's named in that file. We all know that already. We know that he exists in the Black Book, along with thousands and thousands of other names. Thousands. But there's got to be something else that's going on here. And I'll tell you something that I would like to see as well. I would like to see the media start to give some more and some better coverage to the victims, to those that actually want to speak out, those that are not afraid to speak out. Give us some context of what was going on there. So maybe, just maybe, we can come up with some better understanding. But this is one of those sort of things where I'm not going to argue with you and say, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. Neither of us know the answer. Whether I've been with Trump for a decade and a half, or you have been with him for, 0 time, it doesn't matter. Your position is as valid as mine because I simply don't know. This wasn't something that we spoke about during my 15 years there. This wasn't something that he discussed with me. This wasn't anything that came across my desk. I just don't know.
Yeah, look, this is his dark past that he doesn't. This was a period of time in his life. In the 90s when he would do the beauty pageants with the underage girls, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, who would go back and then, go to the parties on the yachts and things like that. And, no one knows what went down there, but that they were on the yachts together with, these beauty pageants, Trump model agency, this was all part of a period of time, and what's interesting too, Cohen, as I look through the time, when did he officially get married to Melania? Do you remember those specific?
I think it was 2015.
No, it was before that to Melania. He got married before to Melania. You think?
I'm sorry, not 2015, 2000,
4 or 5.
Yeah, 2005. I'm sorry.
Yeah. To me, that's a missing link that people aren't talking about also, right? Because, Trump was at, the Kit Kat Club, in the 90s with these events with the young European women and then he meets Melania, and then, again, I'll go data driven, but he wants to, I think he's getting married for the 3rd time. He's got this Epstein thing, was like his best friend. And there was this push and pull on these different worlds around him, at that time. And, I think that's why he wants to run away from all of this. But just let's talk about, for example, that you mentioned the victims, and I'm with you. How terrified, though, must you be right now if you're an Epstein victim and you see how Donald Trump's DOJ and the Republicans are treating Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, you must be terrified to be able to speak and tell your story, because they're treating the sex trafficker as though she's some hero in this story. You know, they rushed the DOJ to speak to Ghislaine, to give her immunity, to give her use immunity to speak 10 hours for 2 days, which she can no longer be prosecuted for anything that she said at that meeting. And Cohen, what did I say was going to happen after that meeting? I said, ain't no way she's speaking to Congress after that. Because first off, let's just say she doesn't answer Congress's questions and they give her immunity. Well, Congress still has to refer the prosecution to the DOJ to prosecute her for contempt of Congress. And Trump's DOJ isn't going to prosecute her for contempt of Congress.
Well, but then if they give her a pardon, if Trump pardons her, and then she gets subpoenaed to testify before Congress, she cannot at that point in time invoke her fifth, because she can no longer be prosecuted for it. And so there is no Fifth Amendment right at that time. All right. Now she can claim, I don't know. Well, that's a different violation. That's a 1001 violation, lying to Congress, if you can prove that she did, which of course goes to the intent or the mens rea. That doesn't really work. I mean, there's so much here. And, you know, I read some of the comments as they're flying by, a lot of people getting involved here. Oh, Cohen knows. If I knew, do you really think that I wouldn't have said something after 7 congressional hearings? You think that the members of Congress, during my 63 hours of testimony, 63, that some of these members of Congress didn't ask me questions about Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein's Island, and so on? You think they didn't ask? Really? Are you that gullible? Do you not really think that they did their homework? If I knew, it would be out there.
But Cohen, speaking of your congressional testimony, though, you cooperated with Congress, right? You testified.
I was subpoenaed. And I appeared.
And you appeared. So Ghislaine Maxwell was subpoenaed to show up on August 11th, or to be deposed in the Tallahassee prison on August 11th. Well, her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, rather, who's close friends with Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the Department of Justice, Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney. By the way, in the case where Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts, where you were the main witness and Blanche cross-examined you. So that meeting happens Thursday and Friday between Ghislaine's lawyer and the DOJ's number 2. And now today, David Oscar Marcus, the lawyer for Ghislaine, says, you know what, Congress, we've got a list of demands for you. If you want Ghislaine to testify, you're going to listen up to our demands. You hear me? I can't make this up. Cohen, you're laughing because you know that's why it's a perfect segue. This is real. This is what they said. Number 1, Congress. Number 1, a grant of formal immunity to Ghislaine, but that's not enough. Number 2, we're going to tell you where the interview happens. She will not sit anywhere in the facility where she's currently incarcerated. She will dictate where the meeting takes place. Number 3, you will tell her what you're asking her in advance. She will not answer a single question unless you specifically tell her what the questions are going to be. She can adequately prepare, and then she will respond in a way before you show up to the questions. There will be no surprise questions to be asked to her at all. And number 4, we are not going to show up on August 11th. She will not answer questions then. She will only answer questions, quote, after the resolution of her Supreme Court petition and her forthcoming habeas petition. Forthcoming means she hasn't really filed her habeas petition. So basically, she just said, I ain't doing this anytime soon. Because regardless of what the Supreme Court does, she's going to file a habeas. Let me take a big guess what she's going to say in her habeas, among other claims. The President of the United States just said that the lead prosecutor Maureen Comey, who was fired, is responsible for perpetrating a hoax. Her dad, according to the president of the United States, tampered with the files and is responsible for the Epstein hoax. As a result, my client did not get a fair trial because the president of the U.S., who directs the FBI and DOJ, says it's a hoax. Your Honor, even if the president is lying or is wrong, the fact that the president of the United States has now interfered or has involved himself in this investigation, that is a new fact, and a habeas petition must be granted. Let me give people the unfortunate news. Based on those facts, a habeas petition should be granted. Do I want to see that as the outcome? Freaking hell no. Do I want to see her rot in jail? Absolutely, as a sex trafficker. If you were to apply the standards for a habeas petition and give those facts, the only way for a judge to deny her habeas petition is to say Donald Trump has zero credibility and you can't listen to the words of the president of the United States, which I agree is the truth. But a federal judge will have to make the judicial finding that any words that a president, this would be precedent. When a president says something, it is completely meaningless and utterly ignored. But Cohen, let me go back to you here because you were laughing as I read to you her conditions. You've been through a process.
I sure have, more than once. And I can tell you, no lawyer or the Department of Justice is not acknowledging what he's saying. First of all, you get immunity testifying. It's a limited immunity. You don't get unconditional immunity. Second of all, you don't get to dictate the terms. In fact, all they need to do is to subpoena her. If they really want to give her the business, if they really want to teach her a lesson, they subpoena her through the institution, through the federal correctional institution that she's currently laid up in. What they do is they put you in the box. All right. Let me tell you what the box has been. Stay with me on this one because this is a bitch, man. It's called management variable U. They put you on a bus. All right. You're not in a nice sprawling, bus that, has the bathrooms in it where, you get up, you get down, somebody serves you a nice little glass of champagne. They handcuff and shackle you. Bless you. They handcuff and they shackle you, and they take the chains, and the chains go into a big box that sits on your lap. Basically, the only movement you have is this. You can go up and down with your hands. You can't move them to the left, to the right. You are literally chained, and they put you onto a bus. Now, that bus is not destined for Washington, D.C. Congress. You are not the only one in it. It is a mass transport of inmates from all over the place. You may end up going from wherever she's at. Let's say she's in California. You're going to make that brutal trip of California to D.C. in this bus. If you don't cooperate, all right, where they'll let you every say 8 hours, they take your hands out of the box and allow you to go to a bathroom. All right. They do feed you. You get usually a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? That's about all that you're eating. It's really brutal. And they don't go straight from California to DC. They stop in multiple places. They could stop in Texas to unload. They could stop in Florida to unload. Hell, they can go straight up to Maine, and then from Maine to Idaho, and then from Idaho to DC. You have no idea. It could be a 1 month long trip and journey for you, which again is freaking brutal. So if that's the game that they want to play, fucking management variable her. I also had just a quick thought I wanted to pose to you again, Ben. All right. Join me here because I really need your help on this one as well. As a lawyer, I'm always thinking or trying to think a little bit outside the box. What if one of these victims, what if they actually sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation? The same way that Trump is suing people like Rupert Murdoch and others, the Wall Street Journal and so on, for defamation. What if you sued her? Again, the way like E. Jean Carroll sued Trump for defamation. She was found liable. She was convicted 20 years for her participation in this sex trafficking ring. And now she's denying it. Why not sue her for defamation? And if you did that, you would immediately have the right to the entire file.
Well, I think that's the reason why we have a lot of these documents is that a federal judge, to your point, back in 2020, unsealed hundreds of pages of deposition transcripts and other documents related to a now settled defamation suit brought against Ghislaine Maxwell,
Right.
who is accused of, at that point she was accused, but now she was convicted. Maxwell's deposition transcripts from 2016 was part of it. Virginia Giuffre's deposition testimony was part of it. So we did get. That's when people wonder where these documents came from that exist. They come from civil cases that were around there. But to your point, in a civil case, one of the victims would then have to subpoena the Department of Justice
Right.
for those files. But let's be clear, Congress, the House Oversight Committee, based on this maneuver made by Democrats, has subpoenaed those files. Now, the ball's in the DOJ court, and this is why Congress recessed, because MAGA Mike wanted to give Trump and Bondi their space, as MAGA Mike said, to kind of figure out what their plan is. And now they're executing their plan. The plan is the Ghislaine immunity. The plan is focus on grand jury testimony. The plan is Donald Trump goes to Scotland and disappears for a few days. Hopefully things settle down, announce a trade deal. Then maybe in the dog days of summer, people forget about it. Like, that's the plan. Their plan isn't working. And I think one of the big reasons why the plan isn't working either, and I'm not just trying to give ourselves a pat on the back here, but independent media generally, we've been laser focused on Epstein for 5 years. And now that this is becoming an issue that lots of people are focused on, we have an institutional knowledge. Like, yes, Donald Trump may have said that about Virginia Giuffre today. We've been talking about that since 2020 and everything that was going on there. Maria Farmer's sister Annie, Jane Doe, the 14-year-old victim, and others. And so, as I've said before, I would know exactly where in the files Donald Trump would appear. So if I know, I have a feeling that people in Congress know where exactly it is. And now that showdown will take place between the DOJ and Congress. And we're going to see that showdown play out August 11th, when Ghislaine, who's dictating her terms, what do you think Congress is going to do? I think Congress will show up.
Well, I don't think Congress will show up because they're off till September 2nd, right? Which to me is sort of an interesting fact, right? That, it's supposed to be now August 11, but you don't even have Congress in session.
Well, their plan was to take the depot in Tallahassee. So it was going to be a group of people from the Oversight Committee, whatever it is, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and then they show up together.
I don't know. When I went before the House Oversight Committee, there was 60 people?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, everybody has, this one is so big that every one of them will have the ability to go. Where are they going to hold this?
The initial plan was in prison. We'll talk about that and more. Our producer is saying we got to take a quick break. So we'll take that quick break now. I want to remind everybody about Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show, Michael Cohen's Substack, the Midas Touch Substack. We've been breaking a lot of news there. And by the way, everybody remember the video of Trump being caught cheating, playing golf in Scotland? Midas Touch research team unearthed that, thanks to all of your support of the growth of our team there. So thanks everybody for subscribing to our Substack, to Cohen's Substack. The Mea Culpa audio podcast, Mea Culpa Blue, wherever you get your podcast, subscribe there. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more Ghislaine Epstein, but I want to talk about the fake trade deals as well, because, Trump announces a deal with Europe. Then Europe says, actually, it's not a binding deal. We're not going to really invest $600 billion. Trump announces deal with Japan. Japan says, we're not investing $550 billion. It's not happening. Donald Trump says Australia's taking all of our American beef. Australia's like, you realize that we're the biggest exporter of beef? Sure, we're going to take your American beef. It is a constant pattern that we're seeing here. And the reality is that prices are up, inflation is increasing, and the economy is struggling. And we'll talk about that and more.
Except that gas is at $1.99.
Yeah, well, the same way he says a lot of things. That's what Epstein was able to do in popping this bubble, where it finally woke up, I think, a lot of Americans, who just not necessarily ultra MAGA people, just people who are not political. And I think they're just like, what? And they're not familiar with this story. And then once you're there, you go, oh, and wait a minute, and wait a minute, and wait a minute. And I think that's an important awakening. That's why we have to be relentless and flood the gates with pro-democracy content. All right, let's take that break before my producer gets angry at me. We'll be right back.
You ever try flipping an omelet in a pan that's older than your last bad decision? Well, I have, and it didn't flip. It actually launched, hit the backsplash like it was trying to escape the country. That's when I knew that it was time for a serious upgrade. And that's when I found Hexclad. I mean, this isn't your grandma's scratched up skillet. Hexclad, it combines the muscle of stainless steel with the magic of non-stick. You get pro-level cooking without the cleanup disaster. I mean, I cooked spicy shrimp last night. Didn't stick, didn't scorch. It didn't leave me soaking pans until morning. And let's talk about the knives. 67 layers of Japanese Damascus steel. I mean, these things are so sharp, they cut tension at a congressional hearing. Now, I've been slicing garlic so thin that I'm starting to hear Tony Soprano narrate my life. I mean, they're oven safe up to 500 degrees. They're dishwasher safe, and they're built like a tank. Plus, they come with a lifetime warranty, not 4 years, lifetime. I mean, that's more commitment than most politicians give their constituents. Oh, and by the way, Gordon Ramsay uses Hexclad. I mean, that guy screams at food for a living. I mean, if these pans can survive him, trust me, they can survive anything in your kitchen. So here's what you do. Go right now to hexclad.com/beat and get 10% off. That's Hexclad, HEXCLAD.com/beat, BEAT. So again, that's 10% off your entire order at hexclad.com/beat. So level up your cooking and treat yourself to the cookware that takes the heat and keeps looking good while doing it. So bon appetit with Hexclad.
Welcome back. Those ad reads, man. You like Hexclad. You keep telling me how great their products.
I got to tell you, this morning, because my stomach has been bothering me a little bit. So I went ahead. I made myself a nice dry tomato omelet. I dice it up nice and thin, throw it in there, and so on. I didn't even use more than maybe a pinch of oil, and it moved around. I did a little flippy here and there. Perfect. It heats up well. Beautiful pan.
Let me show you. Then I want to pivot to talk about some international news. But this was the deposition testimony that Midas Touch unearthed. Our producers unearthed it, and this is Epstein at his deposition. We played this one before, but when he was asked, you didn't like the way the question was asked, Cohen, when I showed you this previously. But what I found interesting about this clip is the question was like, did you and Donald Trump ever hang out around girls under the age of 18? And to your point, Cohen, before, you're like, okay, I mean, there's a lot of things that you could lawfully do, in a setting, where there could be a hostess who's under the age of, 18 at a restaurant or something. The mind shouldn't immediately go to,
right.
I'm going to have to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, that any interaction with girls under the age of 18 was criminal, but watch for yourself. Play the clip.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
You know, what he should have done is ask for a clarification. Because, like I said before, I don't think it's a well-worded question. Why? Ben, have you and I ever socialized? Yes.
Yes.
We were at an event together where you received that award for the best podcast in America.
Yes.
Okay. While we were socializing, was there anybody there under the age of 18? The answer is yes. There were these folks that brought in their kids. She must have been maybe 8 or 9 years of age. So while you and I were socializing, were we doing it in the presence of somebody under the age? This is the way lawyers think when you parse it out. What he should have asked him in a sexual manner. I mean, go for the jugular, go for the question, because that's the type of question. And then you force him to invoke his 4th, his 5th, and his 14th Amendment rights, right? That way you understand that you're on the right track. When you leave these large, broad, open type of questions, you know, it's, again, I'm with Ben on this one. He immediately went to invoking his 5th Amendment right. I would have probably turned around and said, can you clarify that question? Because, you know, it's such a broad and an open question. You know, can you clarify? But he didn't want to clarify. He didn't want to continue with the question. He wanted to shut it down. And how did he shut it down? By invoking the 5th.
Let's talk a little bit about some international news that our viewers probably aren't getting anywhere else. I think it's important. First, let's turn to Canada. No trade deal yet with Canada. There's no trade deal with any country, frankly. Donald Trump has announced fake deals across the world. How do we know they're not real deals? Has anybody actually seen the paperwork around any of them? Because the way trade deals work is that they're a deal. And the way deals work is that they're not some sort of concepts of oral arrangements. They're written.
Can I jump in on this one for a second?
Yeah.
Right. To those people who want to understand more what Ben is alluding to here, a trade deal generally is about 1,000 pages long. You can actually Google them and read through them. Why? Because it's not a single letter. Dear President of Midas Touch Network, Ben, you now owe me 15% as a tariff on everything. That's not a trade deal. That's a letter. It's a wish letter. Trade deals are broken down into sectors, and the sectors get broken down into microsectors. For example, we've already seen them turn around and say agriculture is going to be different, for example, than meat products or poultry, right? Then you also have steel, aluminum is going to be different than lumber. So these are all worked out in very, very specific detail. That's why it's called a trade deal. They are long, they are complicated, and they take an enormous amount of time and an enormous amount of effort, other than saying, I'm just going to take the same letter, I'm just going to change the heading with the name and to where we're mailing it to. Deal's over.
And ultimately, if you look at the purpose of trade deals, whether it's the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, or a trade deal we had with Japan, the purpose is to open up trade, to remove the tariff barriers, to allow the free flow of products with as minimal government intrusion as possible. That's the sole purpose of why you do deals, not to erect barriers the way Trump is doing here. But,
Ben,
so Donald Trump will,
you know what would be great? I would love to get a video of somebody coming, yeah, hi, Mr. President. We just got this, return to sender.
but the crazy thing too about those letters that he sent, he got bored after sending like 16 of them. Like he couldn't even send letters to all of the countries. So not only did he not do the deals, He stopped the letters after 16 and like, I don't even want to know who these other countries are anyway. I mean, how ridiculous is that? So Donald Trump announces there's a trade deal with Japan, 15% tariffs. They will be doing a signing bonus and giving us $550 billion right away. And 90% will go to American business. 90% of profits will go to American businesses. 10% goes to Japan. And I'm like, okay, this is impossible. Japan's entire GDP is $4 trillion. They're not doing a signing bonus of $550 billion where they only get 10% of the profits. That's not happening. And sure enough, Japan says this was not a binding deal. No terms are binding on us. The $550 billion really just refers to discretionary loans that we can or cannot make based on our own discretion. We're not obligated to do anything, and that's not what it is. So it's not a real deal, right? The same thing when Donald Trump goes to Europe and he goes, they will be investing $600 billion in the US. They will be importing $250 billion of energy. It's like, well, that doesn't even make sense. That's more than the output America could even provide. Europe doesn't have the capacity to do it. The European Union can't bind its members to a deal like that anyway, or private corporations to invest. They have no authority to do that. And then sure enough, the European Union comes out with a statement. Now it's more of a wish list. It's a concept. It's nothing that we're going to do. It's not really real. It's not a guarantee. So, okay. And then earlier today, well, what about the deal with Vietnam or Indonesia? Do you have those deals? Can we look at it? No, you can't look at it. And so I thought this was pretty notable, Cohen, because you have Stephen Harper, former conservative prime minister of Canada from 2006 to 2015, I believe. I think it's 06 or 08 to 2015, but a significant portion in time, Harper was the prime minister of Canada. He was the most pro-American prime minister, almost to a degree where it was kind of laughable. It's like, okay, what are you going to do, Harper? Whatever America says that we do. Like, it's just whatever America says. So Harper was recently speaking in Saskatoon in Canada, and he was asked about, well, what advice would you give to the current government in Canada? And he goes, it's funny you say that. I've spoken to Prime Minister Carney. What a novel concept, right, Cohen, that the prime minister right now, liberal prime minister, would ask for advice of a conservative prime minister. And they butt heads on a lot of issues. But hey, you were there. What do you think we should do? And I thought this moment was so telling. And Harper will say, if you asked me about a year ago, I would say the U.S. is our friend. He goes, now I told Carney, the U.S. is not our friend. We got to get away from them. And he goes, all of the world leaders that I speak to, because Harper sits on all of these boards now with world leaders where people go after they're done being prime ministers of countries. And he's like, they all say the same thing, that America's done, that you can't do business with America. Let me play this, because to me, this is the type of insight that I look for in my news consumption to get real data points about what's going on, not when the New York Times reports Trump secures massive trade deal. And it's like, no, he didn't. He didn't. Here, play this clip of Harper.
I was just gonna put it in this context, just so everyone understands. I think it's fair to say, probably the most pro-American prime minister in Canadian history. And I tell people that if a year ago the government had asked me, President Trump's coming in, he's talking about, big challenges on trade, USMCA, tariffs. What would you advise? I would have said a year ago, this is a real opportunity for Canada to really deepen its economic and security partnership with the United States. However, when this government did actually ask me a few weeks ago my advice was the opposite. My advice was, yes, on the economy, we've got to kind of get something short-term worked out with the Trump administration, but This really is a wake-up call for this country to truly diversify its trade export markets. That's why, that's why we did sign the trade deals all around the world, Europe, Asia, Pacific, the Americas. And Canada has been, to be blunt, this is, nothing against the U.S. The reality is independent of the current disputes. Canada has been, to use business term, and I'm in the investment business now, we have been grossly overweight the United States as a country. And there is no reason for that. Just because we have that geographic proximity does not justify the degree of dependence that we have on a single market, which is sometimes disadvantageous. And the other thing, in terms of security, my advice to the government is, yes, absolutely, spend more on defense. We should have been doing it all along. But while we spend a lot more in defense, while the border is a shared responsibility, let's make sure we spend a lot more on defense so that we can be independently responsible for our own land, seas, and skies, independent of the United States. And I'm just going to tell you right now, one political role I still have, I chair the Global Federation of Conservative Parties, and I can tell you that this is the advice every allied capital is getting from everybody like me that they talk to. And this is not ideal, but I just think it's a reality. The cat's out of the bag. You can't, or toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever you want to call it. You can't put it back. I think it's unfortunate. I think in the long term, this direction will weaken the free world more than it will help it, and it will, I think, ultimately weaken the United States as well. So I think it's unfortunate, but that is the reality of the situation that we have to deal with.
He's so right. He's absolutely right. I think it's time, Ben, for the two-finger salute.
Oh, can I just give you a quick layup? Let me give you a quick layup. Show this video, Jeremy, of you know who I'm, Christy Nome. Here, play it.
Wow.
Now show the photo, Jeremy. Jeremy, I'm lobbying you. Show the photo of Christy Nome. So she's in Argentina right now. And as our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, goes, I think the climate in Argentina may have made her lips a little bit bigger. But she's there. That was a real video released by the Department of Homeland Security promoting her trip there. I think she's with Corey Lewandowski there. And there's been lots of rumors and gossip there that I won't get into, that people can look into on their own. That's probably, look into it on your own. Cohen, two-finger salute.
Yeah, two-finger salute, actually, to those of you who maybe aren't aware. I literally live 7 blocks away on the same street as where the shooting took place yesterday here in New York. In fact, I was outside when I just watched dozens and dozens and dozens of police cars. I mean, I never saw anything like it, to be honest with you. It was a bigger presence than, for example, when the president is in town and they shut down all of the streets and so on. This was even bigger. Within a matter of minutes, more than 300 of New York's finest showed up to 52nd Street and Park Avenue. And my two-finger salute is actually going to go to Senator John on his knees, Neely Kennedy from Louisiana. We have a gun problem in this country, all right? We have a gun problem in this country. This fucking guy travels from Las Vegas, from Nevada, to New York with an AR-style weapon in his vehicle. Obviously, we all now believe we know he was targeting the NFL that was in the building, claiming his mental problems are the direct result of CTE. I don't know that to be true or false. And for us not to acknowledge And by the way, as a family, we know one of the victims' families. All right. And let me be very clear. I don't even know how you deal as a family with a loss like this. For what? For nothing. This young girl went to Columbia University, graduated, was working at Rudin, and she was killed. And I got to tell you, when somebody like John on his knees, Neely Kennedy, gets up there and says, "Oh yeah, all of the liberals, all of the progressives, they're going to turn around and they're going to start saying we need better, stricter gun laws in order to prevent this." No, what we need is laws against idiots. And I agree with him. We need laws against idiots, including members of the Senate like him. We definitively have a gun problem in this country. To this day, somebody who used to carry, I had one of only 1,000 licenses in New York for a concealed carry permit. I can only say, and I don't know a nice way, I am not anti-Second Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment. I just don't believe anybody needs a weapon of war. That AR-style weapon belongs on a battlefield, not in the hands of a civilian. No more than owning a javelin, no more than owning a hand grenade, no more than owning a land-to-air missile launcher. You can't have those. Can't have a Sherman tank. So why can you have this? And so to you, John, you fucknut Neely, Kennedy, fuck you on behalf of all of New Yorkers, on behalf of all Americans, on behalf of everyone. Fuck you and your stupidity.
On that, we'll call it a show. A reminder, everybody, to subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack and the Midas Touch Substack. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Wherever you just search YouTube at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe. The Mea Culpa audio podcast, wherever you get your audios podcast, just subscribe to Mea Culpa. He's got some great guests, and remember to listen to Michael Wolff's. I thought Michael Wolff's was great. I'm going to have Michael Wolff on more. I've asked him I said, every day you do one of those videos, I said, become a contributor to Midas Touch. I just said, in your living room or outside, I said, make some videos every day. We'll post them.
I'll reach out to him.
We're gonna try that tonight. He submitted one.
Oh, and beautiful.
So, yeah. We're gonna drop one tonight, and we'll go from there. Everybody, thanks so much for watching. We appreciate you. Thanks to everybody who was there for the Patreon meeting that we held last week. That was a lot of fun at patreon.com/political beatdown. Great episode. We covered a lot. Share with your friends, family, and coworkers, and we'll see you next time. Shout out Beatdown Brigaders and shout out Midas Mighty.
Boom.